exactly where you've got it.
Here?
Yes, so right bang in the middle, that's where that hole is, the exit is there.
Oh, really?
Those two flags are going right in the way, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, I can read.
I'll go tell the organisers, but
Yeah.
I mean, getting there.
Yeah. Yes. Not waiting now.
No.
In just a few weeks, the latest song will know the real price.
We had a few problems coming up on the appearance of the copy of the number.
Is that how you do that?
No way of seeing the satellite.
There are spots over there. There are spots you can get if you park next to the QE2.
You know what, by the time we arrived at 9, parking was too late. So everyone parked the truck outside.
Their latest song, as you'll know, is all about the march on Saturday, the people's vote. So, you know, we want to get the message out there to any people possible, turn up and let's make it clear that why we're marching. It's important now that we're at the moment, the most important thing is that we've got the march there. We're not giving in to the council, we're not giving in to anybody. It's all about the millions of people out there having a voice to say exactly what we think. Now we know what we let ourselves in for. It's important that we get the message out there. You know, it's so important that it's going to affect for years to come. It's going to affect our children and grandchildren. It's going to affect the economy, which I think is going to affect all businesses. And you know, why should we be bullied into leaving the EU? Boris is saying today that Theresa May shouldn't be bullied by the EU, but then why should we be bullied by Theresa May? It's important that we stand up, make our voice heard. We're on camera here with this. 95% of people on the trains now support us again, train drivers giving us, and I think it's so important now that we get the message out there to people's vote. It's not too late, we're in the building, and it's important now that we stand up and do it.
Where they're going to be speaking now. Handheld mics along that length of the thing. Yeah, okay, great. Yeah, okay. Super. Then obviously there's nothing, you know, we've got standard festival business where the flags are in the way, but there's nothing we can do about that.
We have a real clear choice. We have the actual.
It's fine for me, but it's just the BBC you're asking.
And in those circumstances, it's the people,
yeah, I know.
not the politicians, that should be.
Alright.
We need the people's vote now, so we can rebuild our faith in the future.
My colleague just to the left there of where that is there, and then he said you're going to have handhelds all the way along. Yeah, I mean the only way to do that is maybe
The free trade agreement that Britain will ultimately have to negotiate with the European Union should be the easiest FTA in the history of mankind.
I don't believe it! £350 million a week and spend it on our priorities such as the NHS.
And overwhelmingly, because over the next 50 years,
run all the VTs apart from...
So here we are, 2 years on from Brexit, when our country decided to leave the European Union. I think it's fair to say back then we didn't really know what it would entail. We didn't really know the ramifications for leaving the European Union. I think gradually over that period of time things have been made much clearer. We're starting to get a slight feel for what it would mean, the ramifications for different areas of Brexit, and it's becoming completely clear that there are very few positives, and it's almost unanimous that it will have some sort of debilitating effect on our economy at the very least, and other issues such as the Irish border. So it's really reached a stage now where perhaps we should consider a people's vote. That's why I'm supporting it. I think it's very rare in life that you get a chance to use the benefit of hindsight. How many times do we say, well, with hindsight I would have done things differently? With this, it's 2 years on. We have the benefit of hindsight if we use a people's vote. Give the people the opportunity to have another look at it and have a look at what this deal with the European Union, whether it's an exit or not, really means. It's time for a people's vote.
That's good there. That's good there. Is that alright with you? Well, it's a lovely parasol for us. Yeah.
I'm Jamelia.
I'm Dominic West.
My name's Philip Paul.
I'm a farmer from Scotland.
I'm Josh Widdicombe.
I'm Stephen Mangan.
Natasha McElhone. I'm Tracy Ullman.
My name is Natty.
Mr. Lucas here. I work in the NHS.
I'm Ollie Alexander.
Alright everyone.
2 years on, it's clear that there are very few positives.
This is not what we voted for.
Neither the government nor the people had very much information about the implications of Brexit.
The final deal is not going to be what anyone voted for on either side.
Democracy should protect us from politicians who made promises they never intended to keep.
We are barrelling towards either a bad deal or a no deal.
Do you know what? This isn't for me.
Even my friends and family who voted to leave didn't vote for no deal or a bad deal.
Imported hormone beef and chlorinated chicken. That's not what we voted for.
Europe for me is about peace. Working together to bring about change.
We want a conversation about what's going to happen for the future.
The people were misled and lied to.
Just imagine what they're going to be like negotiating with Trump.
It just seems to be a big, shitty mess that we're going to hand down to our kids.
I don't want to spend the rest of my life dealing with the mess of Brexit that my generation didn't vote for.
Brexit is a big deal. It's not a done deal.
How many times do we say, well, with hindsight, I would have done things differently?
We need to make our voices heard.
Second vote is a great example to show this country is thinking before we're going to
get out there.
Let's push for a people's vote.
People's vote.
I back the people's vote.
The people's vote.
I'd like to have a second vote.
The people's vote.
The people's vote.
I'm calling for a people's vote.
Let's get a people's vote.
I'm sorry I'm going to have to use this phrase, but it's time we took back control.
We need a chance for the people's vote.
The people's vote.
People's vote.
The people's vote.
Will you join us?
So I'll ask them now to cheer if they think we should have a people's vote on the final deal. So there you go. Thank you very much. We've got the people's spoken.
Lies were told, promises made that cannot and will not be honoured. The lack of consideration of our industrial and business enterprises, of relationships that have blossomed and flourished for over 40 years under our European alliance. The damage is incalculable. The devastating effect on our academic life, our universities, the waste incurred by abandoned joint European projects. Projects, for example, in the arena of life sciences, dedicated to the betterment of the health of all nations. In 1940, with the threat of fascism knocking on the door of our land, Winston Churchill proposed that the people of France and the people of the United Kingdom be united by joint citizenship. Then in 1963, 2 years before he died, he wrote, "The future of Europe, if Britain were to be excluded, is black indeed." Never have those words been as prescient as they are today. The rise of neoconservatism, mirrored both in the East and West, fostered by the narcissistic, thoughtless idiocy of the American POTUS, combined by the sheer vicious thuggery of the poisoner of Moscow. Now, more than ever, has there been a time where a united, not divided Europe should hold and keep a balance of political sanity in our world. The opportunistic clowns of Brexit, Gove, Johnson and the Little Englander, Farage and the feudalist rees-mogg have shown not an iota of Churchill's vision and wisdom. The global political climate of 2018 is now so radically different from that of 2016. A people's vote is vital in order that they be given the opportunity to reflect and review how the referendum of 2016 has been altered by the social, political, and economic nature of our lives today in 2018.
Because ethnic minorities will be hit hardest. Because Brexit puts the Good Friday Agreement in jeopardy.
This isn't a left-wing or right-wing argument. It's not a Remain or a Leave argument.
The future of young people will be better protected by us remaining inside the European Union. Young people need to just recognise that this is their future. It needs to be their choice. Okay, a big case there.
It is for young people and for everybody really to see this deal, to see what it is that we're going to be getting and to say, is that good enough for us? Is that good enough for people?
Welcome everybody! To help take you through what we hope will be a fantastic event in the campaign for a People's Vote, please welcome your hosts, Mariella Frostrup and Richard Bacon.
Afternoon everybody, welcome. Some news to start with. The media reported that there would be 100,000 people at this march today. The number is nothing like that. We have not only doubled that, trebled it, quadrupled it. An hour ago, the number of people at this march was estimated at 565,000 people. 565! But hang on. I have news for you. We have been talking to the police and we've been talking to the stewards. More people are streaming in, and the total number of people demanding a vote today is 670,000 people. We have some terrific speakers lined up for you today, some wonderful films. It will be a lot of fun, but it's also deadly serious because the future of our country is at stake. And it's about what we do next. We march, we write to our MPs, we email our MPs, we go to our MP surgeries to make sure they get the message that we demand a people's vote. We demand a people's vote. We demand a people's vote. We demand a people's vote.
Are you auditioning for a political career? Beware of Richard Bacon. Hello everybody, it's fantastic to see all 670,000 of you out there today. I'd like to extend a particularly warm welcome to the many, many young people who have come of age to vote in the 2 years since the referendum. Welcome to you. Welcome to the voting world. And also to the many disillusioned Brexiteers who I also believe are among us today. And we are delighted to have you. Welcome back to the fold. Our first speaker is one of a small minority known by their first name to millions of people. It's not Boris on his hands and knees begging forgiveness. That would be such a lovely sight. But it is someone far more trustworthy, far more palatable. Dare I say, someone delicious. It's Delia.
Miss a Norwich City football match for anything else, but I just had to be here with all of you today. I'm so afraid about what's happening to our beloved country. Sorry, this one. I'm so afraid of what's happening to our beloved country and the people making very grave decisions on our behalf. When the vote happened, we were not fully informed. Now we know. Dire consequences. And that can be summed up in just 2 words. Unmitigated chaos. But now we do see the NHS lose doctors and nurses, large companies move out, factories close, jobs are lost. And what are we doing? We're building lorry parks and stockpiling drugs. That's what we're doing. So my message to MPs is please sort it out. Let the people you serve have their say now, because they actually now know what they would be voting for. So where are you? So come on, MPs, you are the ones who represent us. So on behalf of all of us, where are you? Let's be having you.
And I'd like to, with great pride, introduce the Mayor of London, please, Sadiq Khan.
My name is Sadiq Khan. I am the Mayor of London, and I support a people's vote. Welcome to London. What a day, what a turnout. This is an historic moment. A moment when people from all corners of our country, from all walks of life, come together to have their voices heard. And isn't it inspiring to see so many young people here today leading the way? You know what? It's absolutely right. It was young people leading this march because it's their future that's on the line. You know, young people's voices wasn't heard during the EU referendum campaign, but their voices are being heard loud and clear today, echoing all the way down the road to the doors in Downing Street. This government is leading us towards either a bad Brexit deal or even worse, no deal at all. These options are a million miles away from what was promised. The government doesn't have a mandate to gamble with our future. Are we going to stand by and let them? The government is risking the livelihoods of our children without the people having a final say. Are we going to stay quiet? The government is choosing party politics over the national interest. Are we going to let them get away with it? You know, the lies, the mistruths, the deceptions are now being exposed, and the will of the British people is changing. No one who voted to leave the EU voted to make themselves poorer. No one voted to make it more difficult for their children and grandchildren. No one voted to damage the NHS. No one voted for what this government is leading towards. You know, there are some people who complain, but we are acting. And what's really important is those that complain and say that a public vote is undemocratic, is unpatriotic, realise that in fact the exact opposite is the truth. What can be more democratic, what can be more British than trusting the judgment of the British people? And so let the message ring out loudly and clearly today. It's time. It's time for this vital issue to be taken out of the hands of politicians in Westminster. It's time it was returned to the British people. It's time we took back control.
A big round for the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. Thank you, Sadiq. So this is the People's Vote campaign, but it's only the MPs who can give us that vote, or who can make sure that no deal or a bad deal is rejected. MPs have to listen, but they also have to lead.
So please welcome two MPs from areas which were deeply divided by the vote, but who feel passionately that there is no Brexit deal on offer that will not damage the people they represent. From Sedgefield in the northeast and from Totnes in Devon, please welcome Labour's Phil Wilson and Tory MP Sarah Wollaston.
Thank you. Under any deal the Prime Minister brings back, this country will suffer, but the northeast of England will suffer the most of all. I was brought up in a coal mining community, the son of a coal miner. I know what happens when an industry closes. The unemployment, the poverty, the loss of hope, and the years it takes to get back on your feet. Grievances that still play out today. Grievances that need resolved. Brexit may be the symptom, but it is not the cure. Thousands of jobs in the northeast are at stake. If Brexit goes ahead, grievances in those constituencies, in those communities will not go away. So I say to my Labour colleagues, we did not get elected to make our constituents poorer, and you know that's what Brexit will lead to. Brexit is now a moral issue, and the next few weeks will test our moral resolve. We cannot let something we know will harm our constituents to happen. Now is the time for leadership, not for fellowship. What we need now is a people's vote.
Everyone deserves the chance to change their mind when they've looked at the evidence. I would like you to imagine Brexit as an operation. Just imagine you're heading for the hospital. The surgeons have been arguing among themselves, so there's been a bit of a delay. In fact, they don't even know who's properly in charge. Turns out, when they've made up their mind about the operation, it's nothing like the one you were promised. It's far more risky, with far-reaching complications and very few benefits. So you've decided, you've looked at the evidence, and you've changed your mind. But picture this. You're still being wheeled into the operating theatre because somebody's found a consent form you've signed 2 years ago. In fact, it's worse. For young people, you didn't even sign it yourself. Your parents signed it for you 2 years ago. It's the stuff of nightmares, and it wouldn't happen because it wouldn't be informed consent. But I would say Brexit is major constitutional, economic, and social surgery. We deserve the chance to look at the evidence, to weigh up the pros and cons, not the fantasy Brexit, but Brexit reality. And we deserve a people's vote because without it, there is no informed consent. So we're all here today in our thousands, our hundreds of thousands, demanding a people's vote. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. 670,000. 670,000 people who don't want the country to be ruined. Our next speaker knows more than most about Northern Ireland, having lost his father to the Troubles. His role today is to introduce the next generation by video, no expense spared. Please welcome Mr. Patrick Keelty.
In 1988, my father was killed in Northern Ireland. He was one of thousands of innocent victims of a conflict that tore our homeland apart. Then, 10 years later, the Good Friday Agreement brought us peace by allowing both sides to be what they wanted to be, British or Irish. We voted on it by a referendum. And in the EU referendum, we voted to remain because we knew the mess that this would mean for our island. The DUP doesn't speak for everybody in Northern Ireland. We don't need an excuse to be divided. We've been down that road before. So, Mrs. May, if you're listening, we don't want a hard Brexit. We don't want a soft Brexit. We don't want Canada Plus. We don't want Northern Ireland Minus. We don't want checkers. We don't want checkpoints. And we definitely don't want to take back control of our border. We happily gave that up 20 years ago in order to have peace. We want to live as friends and neighbours without people trying to drive us apart. It's called the European Union. You should give it a go, Mrs. May. But don't just take my word for it. From across the four corners of the UK, here's the next generation to tell you why the people's vote is so important.
When I was born in Newry in 1995, the city I call home was a very different place to the place it is today. In fact, every place in Northern Ireland was different. The newspapers and TV screens were filled with stories of shootings, explosions, and violence, and every one of these events left their mark. Northern Ireland is a small place, but the violence always struck close to home. We were divided on green and orange lines, entrenched by opposing ideologies. Then the politicians negotiated, and when they had a deal, a copy of the Good Friday Agreement was sent to every home so that people could see their future and vote on it. It was the most progressive and positive political act in modern history. I am fortunate enough to have grown up without the fear of being bombed, without the fear of losing a sibling in a terrorist attack in the pub, and without the black cloud of violence looming over my head. Brexit threatens all of this. We all know the border is an issue that cannot be ignored. However, for people living in Northern Ireland, it is an invisible line onto which businesses, farms, people and social life have been able to seamlessly grow and prosper. One camera, one police officer, or one customs post, and it will turn into the perfect attack for paramilitaries who want to reignite the violence. I, like so many in Northern Ireland, am a child of the peace process. Yet here we are, 20 years later, facing Brexit. We again are a nation divided, entrenched by opposing ideologies. Let's make sure we have our voices heard. Let's make sure our peace and prosperity is protected, and let's make sure we get a people's vote.
Hello to all you Southerners, and thank you for having me on your stage today. I'm Alice. I'm from near Hull in the mighty Yorkshire. Woo! A place where the beer is cheaper, the people are way friendlier, and we have white fern boxes. But those aren't the only differences between East Yorkshire and London. We're a city built on shipping, facing out towards Europe and the rest of the world. It doesn't always feel like the world is looking back. We're a city that has education rates that are low, investment rates that are low, and employment rates that are low. And to be honest, often our optimism about the future is even lower. And that's why places like where I grew up voted Leave. And because the Brexit elite promised us investment in our public services, promised us investment in our worldwide shipping trade, promised us the hope that comes with taking back control. And where are those promises today? The Brexiters are silent. Frankly, they're quieter than a Londoner on the Underground. But it doesn't need to be this way. Just because the likes of Boris Johnson, Jacob Rees-Mogg think that they can mug off the North, we are not going to take it lying down. because we know a hard truth. The North remembers. And that is why the tide is changing. The momentum is on our side. Make no mistake, winning a people's vote is the challenge of our generation, but is a fight that is worth fighting. Because we are fighting for the mighty Yorkshire. We're fighting for our generation, and we are fighting for all our future's sake. Thank you.
Brynhanda, good afternoon. I'm Carmen and I'm from Wales. Why are you here today? Hope for a better future, to change the course of history, to deliver the democratic people's vote we demand and deserve. From every corner of the country, we have travelled here, and together we cannot, we will not be ignored. I'm from Ynys Môn, an island, a beautiful island in North Wales, from a nation where the roads are long and the valleys wide. And the journey we have travelled together has been taxing, not just on coaches and cars to get here today, but in 6 months. Look how far we have come. And it's because no matter where you're from, we can see that the Brexit being delivered is a million miles away from what was once promised. Because the Brexit elite, the pale, male and stale, told young activists, young women like me, to sit down and shut up. But hell have no fury like a woman ignored. They told all of you that the fight was over, the cause lost. Well, let's tell them that the people here today have a very different view. A fortnight ago, I proudly witnessed my party, Plaid Cymru, the Party of Wales, overwhelmingly support a people's vote. Because we know that Brexit will hit the vulnerable the hardest for the longest. Women bearing the brunt of Boris Johnson's shortcomings. People of colour living with the consequences of Nigel Farage's lies. The working classes living in Jacob Rees-Mogg's brave old world. Democracy means we do not have to accept their vision of the world. So, to all of you, I say, let's fight. Let's fight for a better future. Lles dyfodol pawb, for all our future's sake. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Hello, London! I know many of you have travelled from far and wide to be here today, and as you can probably tell from the accent, I have too. I was raised in the ex-mining communities of Fife, but my reasons for supporting a people's vote run much deeper than being just a proud Scot. Like many of you, I have a personal stake in Brexit too. For my Danish flatmate, my German partner, my family, fellow students, and my community. Every single one of us here knows someone with something to lose. And it doesn't matter if you voted Leave or Remain or were part of the 1.4 million that didn't have a say at all. You matter, your voice matters. We all have a stake in this country's future, and we all share an anger at what's happening right now. We all know the gap from the promises of 2 years ago to the reality of now is longer than the front to the back of this march. And let me tell you, from this stage, this is a bloody big march. 570 days of negotiation, and what to show for it? 28 months of pain. It's not good enough. So why does all this matter? The Brexit elite say it's time to get over it, time to move on. Try telling that to Fife's factory workers whose jobs are now on the line. Try telling that to the NHS and all under its care who daily depend on EU staff. Try telling that to the faces of young people up and down the country whose futures have been traded away. Make no mistake, history is being written right here, right now. What will our children read about? You decide. So we started this section with a short video, and I'm very happy to say we're going to end it with a short video. Please put your hands together and join me in giving a very warm welcome to Scotland's First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon.
I'm really sorry that I can't be with you in person today, but I wanted to send my very best wishes. And let me say this loudly and clearly. If the issue comes before the House of Commons, SNP MPs will support a people's vote which includes the option to remain in the EU. The Leave campaign has already gone down in history as one of the most disingenuous, dishonourable and downright dishonest electoral contests of modern times. Those responsible should be utterly ashamed of themselves. Instead of a coherent vision and a clear prospectus setting out what a vote to leave the EU would mean, all we got instead was waffle and the infamous lie on the side of a bus. Incredible as it seems, things since then have got even worse. The Tory government's handling of these negotiations has been chaotic, incompetent and shambolic. Having spent 2 years telling us that no deal is better than a bad deal, the Prime Minister is now preparing to pile pressure on MPs to vote for a bad or blindfold deal on the grounds that no deal will be catastrophic. She's trying to scare the UK into the frying pan out of fear of the fire. It is a scandal and it should not be accepted. Of course, Scotland has already voted overwhelmingly to remain in the EU. Our vote in 2016 was the most decisive of any of the UK's 4 nations. That vote should be respected now, and the SNP will work to ensure that Scotland's voice is heard in any future vote. I hope we will have your moral support on that. But despite our deep disquiet at Scotland's voice being ignored, we will back a people's vote. We will do so out of solidarity for our friends across the UK and because we believe it is the right thing to do. Let's be clear, there is no such thing as a jobs-first Brexit. The SNP will continue to argue that the UK should stay in the single market and customs union as the least damaging option, but there is no guarantee that will happen. And of course, there is no deal, none, which provides all of the same benefits as EU membership. You just heard from 4 young people from all parts of the UK. Make no mistake, it is their future which is now at stake, and they deserve a much better, more hopeful future than this sorry Brexit mess. That's why the SNP will support a people's vote. Please accept my best wishes and my solidarity for a successful day.
Ladies and gentlemen, Nicola Sturgeon. And keeping on the subject of Scotland, perhaps you could put your hands together for the student coach that's travelled the furthest to be here today. The Highlands and Islands students from Inverness, who've been travelling since the referendum, I think. This is all about the future today. Let's hear now from the brilliant supporters of FFS, the President and Vice President of the NUS, Shakira Martin and Amate Doku.
It's an honour for us to be here today, representing 600 students' unions and 7 million students.
Just like you, the students that Shakira and I represent are from the breadth
and depth of the United Kingdom. And people, all walks of life, have come together today in an unprecedented moment of unity. Now look around you. See who makes up this movement. There'll be young and old, of all political parties and of none. And whilst those in power try to divide us, we stand here united.
Yay!
Because we dream of a better country for future generations. Who could have predicted 2 years ago that so much would be undelivered, so much at stake? Who would have predicted in the sad summer of 2016 that students and young people would band together in their thousands to fight for their future's sake? Well, I say to the people of the UK all the world over, the best way to predict the future is to create it for ourselves. And that is what we're doing here today. Make no mistake, Brexit is not inevitable. Our future is there for the taking, and we will win a people's vote.
With me today are my two beautiful little girls, and I want a people's vote for them as much as I do for my students, because today is a people's vote for our future. How can we look the next generation in the eyes and tell them that their futures are going to be taken away from them? Despite this government's deliberate attempts to hide, confuse and cover up. But for me, Brexit is simple. Will leaving the European Union help the poorest in society, the most vulnerable, the working classes? No. The Brexit elite, Jacob Rees-Mogg, Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage, do they care about anyone but themselves? Do they care about you and your families? No. So the message from students and students' unions hasn't been so clear. We cannot make the working classes in this country poorer. We will not let the far right run free. And we will not allow the elite to cut away our life chances. So Amate, what do we want?
A people's vote.
And when do we want it?
Now.
What do we want? And when do we want it? Solidarity!
Marvellous. A little bit earlier, Mariella mentioned Boris Johnson. Oh, right, not keen. Remember the red bus? Remember the promise of £350 million? That was a lie. In July, the NHS saved my life. And now we need to save the NHS. In a moment, we will hear from a junior doctor and member of the BMA Council, Dr. Hannah Barham-Brown. But first, here's a film on the awful threat now facing the NHS.
Dr. Hannah Barham-Brown, and I'm a junior doctor in Leeds. I'm here today representing the British Medical Association, the voice of UK doctors, and we are calling for the public to have a final say on the Brexit deal. 2 years ago, we were told that Brexit would enrich and improve our health service. They literally wrote it on a bus, and many of us believed them. But now, the narrative around Brexit is one of damage control. Hearing our health secretary talk about stockpiling essential medicines should terrify and infuriate everyone, whether they voted leave or remain. Losing our highly skilled European NHS staff at a time when we are already overstretched is unacceptable. A Brexit at any cost is not a price that our NHS can afford. And it's a price that will ultimately be paid for by those who staff our health service and the patients that we care for. I am one of those patients. I'm a patient who frequently relies on the NHS and its staff from around the world. We have a publicly funded health service providing first-rate care free at the point of need. The NHS is one of the greatest things this country has ever achieved. And yet over the past 2 years, thank you! And yet over the past 2 years, it's become clear that Brexit is a threat to both the NHS and the nation's health. We all need the NHS. So it's only right that we, the ordinary people of this country, have the final say. Because whether we face a good deal, a bad deal, or no deal, our exit from the EU is not a done deal. So let's give the people a final say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hannah. Okay, small quiz, very quick. What do these companies have in common? Asda, AstraZeneca, Jaguar Land Rover, Airbus, Nissan, Ryanair, Superdry. All warn of the potential catastrophe to their business and to business more generally that Brexit represents. How would Brexit go down if presented to the judges of the Dragon's Den? We have an answer for you. Let's ask Deborah Meaden.
I'm guessing you might know the answer to that. Hello, London. Hello to all those people who have made a massive journey to be here. I was with some of you this morning. And hello to the rest of the United Kingdom. So I've worked in business all of my life. If there's one thing business doesn't like, it's uncertainty. 2 years ago, we had no idea what chaos Brexit was going to bring, and today we know even less. This causes business to pause. When business doesn't invest, it means fewer jobs. Less tax revenue means less money to spend on our public services. If someone came to me with a proposal that said, I will make you and your family poorer. I will hurt businesses, jobs and communities across the UK, and I will actively cut off ties to our largest trading partner. And if we don't get a deal, then we're going to have to stockpile food and medicine. I'm guessing you know what I'd say. I'm out. So how does stopping a teenager who never enjoyed school or working for anybody from starting their own business in ceramics in Italy? Because that's my story, but it's not uniquely my own, far from it. Thousands of young people, a whole generation born in the EU, from whom the sky used to be the limit, now facing barriers I never had to face when I set up my first business. And in addition to that, feeling the loss of their wider citizenship. But we have shown here today that that's not the future we want for our businesses, for our families, for our communities. So when you leave here, go back and talk to your communities, talk to the people you walk with, and wake them up to this, because together we can win a people's vote.
Deborah Meaden, woo! We demand.
A people's vote, Mariella. I was just talking to the MPs backstage about what is the single most important thing you can do to make a difference and affect some change, and they all agreed. The answer is to get an inflatable pen and a massive postcard. But the most important thing that you can do...
You stop moving around.
Right, sorry, Mariella, I'll stay still. Is get the real version of these and write to your MP as the crucial votes on the deal approach. An email, a letter, or just a postcard to your MP could genuinely make all of the difference.
As you can see, this is a no-expense spared event. We have even gone to the trouble of a plastic pen. So today we're launching a new campaign. It's called Right This Wrong. Stop laughing. You can email your MP by going to the website that should be on screen now. I can't see the screen, but I'm presuming it is. It'll just take you a few seconds, but it will have a massive impact. It's not enough to have schlepped along today. You must write as well. And tell all your friends and families and anyone you can, cajole into it to do the same thing.
Anyone. As well as, so I haven't got time to do a sort of one-on-one conversation, but thanks. As well as doing that, you may have seen these postcards knocking around today. If you see them, write your personal reason why you want a people's vote, and do not forget to write your name and your postcode on the back of the postcard.
Very good, Richard. Now, because I've had to lean over you. Where are we?
Oh, we're here, just here.
Thank you very much. Oh, that's all you need to do. Then, I could have come up with that myself. That's all you need to do. Then hand them in to our volunteers who are walking around with post bags, or bring them to the front of the stage, and we, that's Richard, will post them to your MP. No, we, the collective we, will post them to your MP.
But it is really by writing that we have a chance of affecting some real change here and getting the people's vote. Now, a lot of the old print media are still against us. But a lot of the old print media are still against us. But not all. Thank you to the New European for their unstinting support, and thank you to the Independent sponsors. We really have had steadfast support from the Independent, and they are also sponsors of today's March for the Future.
And we'd like to welcome their editor, Christian Broughton, to the stage.
Theresa May says that a final say referendum would be a politician's vote, not a people's vote. But we can all remember what some politicians told us in 2016. And we, the people, can all now see what's really coming. And from where I'm standing, it looks like a people's vote to me. When we started the Final Say campaign in July, our politics team hoped we might get as many as 20,000 signatures on our change.org petition. Well, this morning I checked, we had 940,000 signatures. And I'm pretty sure that by the end of today there'll be a few more. We have to keep on showing up and signing up. Now, only the Independent could launch this campaign because we're not tied to any particular political party. We respect our readers, we trust our reporters, and we tell it honestly as it is. So I'm delighted to do a very independent thing now and introduce a range of voices from across the political spectrum. So please welcome Caroline Lucas of the Green Party and the Independent's comment pages, the Labour MP and Independent columnist, Chuka Ramuna, The SNP's Joanna Cherry, the Liberal Democrat leader and independent columnist Vince Cable, and the Conservatives' Anna Soubry.
What a beautiful sight you are, and what a movement we have become. The Green Party is proud to be part of this amazing movement for a people's vote, because we know that democracy didn't end on the 23rd of June 2016. That referendum wasn't the end of the story, it was the start of something new. We must be champions of the greatest social transformation this country has seen in a generation. Friends, we know that Brexit would make our poorest communities even poorer and more powerless. So we must have that people's vote. But we must also reprogram an economy that fails so many, that is based on such inequality, that condemns us to climate breakdown. So let us go out there and use this people's vote as an opportunity to transform the way things are, not to defend the status quo. Let's go out there and knock on those doors until our feet hurt and our voices are lost. Let us talk with our friends and our neighbours and people we don't yet know. And let's do it with the promise of a politics of change, a politics of something different. Let us do it with the promise of hope.
What an amazing crowd. Now, I'm Lambeth born and bred. I represent it, and we scored the highest Remain vote in the country, and we're proud of it. And you know what these Brexiters, the Brexit elite, say about my community, and indeed all of you guys on this march? They try and smear us as some liberal metropolitan elite where nothing could be further from the truth. And you know why they do that? Because right from the start of this debate, they tried to set up different parts of our United Kingdom against each other. They wanted to divide this country. And the truth is, whether you're from a Remain or a Leave area, the problems are the same. In my borough of Lambeth, 1 in 4 people living in absolute poverty. Some of the most acute social problems in the country. But we did not think that Brexit would solve those problems. That's the only difference. And the fact is, what do we know now? Whether you're from Liverpool, Lincoln, Llandudno, Livingston in Scotland, or Lambeth where I am, we now know, going through this process, that Brexit is not going to make any of those problems better. It is going to make them worse. And the deal on the table, it is nowhere near as good as the deal that we've got now. So let us not have your Farages, your Boris Johnsons or your Jacob Rees-Moggs divide this nation, and let us say with one voice, we want a people's vote and we want it now.
Good afternoon, London. It's really great to be in this yes voting city. And like you lot, Scotland voted to remain as well. And also, so did Northern Ireland. And despite the fact that I support Scottish independence, I want to see all the nations of the United Kingdom remain in the European Union. I like the European Union because it's a union of equals. This is in all our interests for us to stay in the European Union. I sit on the Brexit Select Committee at Parliament, and we've had 2 years of evidence. And it's quite clear from that evidence, overwhelming evidence, that it's in the interests of the economy across these islands and our society to remain in the European Union. I also just want to say a little something today about all the European Union citizens who live and work in the United Kingdom and who didn't get a vote. To say that those of us here today still very much care about you. We want you to remain here and to continue to make the huge contribution you do. As things stand, Scotland is looking at being taken out of the European Union against her will. So I'm very, very proud to tell you that my SNP colleagues and myself could not be clearer that when we know what Brexit looks like, we will support a people's vote with the option to remain.
We're all here this afternoon because we care about the future of this country, because we can see that Brexit is a potential disaster, and because we believe it can be stopped. It's not inevitable. And that's why we want a people's vote. But I want to address my remarks to the thousands of young people in the audience whose future is being taken from them. The freedom to travel, to work, to study across Europe. They've been deprived of it because the majority of my generation voted to leave. The majority of young people voted to stay. It's a tragedy that this country is now being divided by generation, and that young people are having imposed upon them a backward-looking vision of the future, turning Britain into a museum. But it doesn't have to happen. Theresa May says she's going out trying to get the best deal for this country. Let's be very clear. There is no deal better than the one we have now. It's the best for Britain, it's the best for Europe, and we should keep it and fight for it, and that's why we want a people's vote now.
You know, when we launched the people's vote back in April, the truth of it is that we were the few. Today, it's clear we are the many. And it's thanks for the work that you have done. I know that people's vote groups throughout the whole of the United Kingdom have gone out into the streets, into the market squares, talking to people with those Brexitometers, making the case and explaining to people why Brexit was not only undefined, it's also undeliverable. Thank you for the work that you have done. We are winning the argument, and we're winning that argument most importantly amongst those people who voted leave. We are making the case that they did not vote for this chaos and this mess. And I say to older leave voters in particular, they know when they look to their children and their grandchildren, increasingly they are putting their interests first. And when they do that, they know that Brexit would be a disaster for the future of our country. But the other thing that many of the brilliant speakers that we've all heard from today have made clear is this. Where are all the Brexit leaders? Where are they? They're not taking responsibility for this mess and for this chaos. They've walked away. We will not walk away. We will take responsibility and we will sort out this mess with a people's vote. That's what we're going to do. friends, because we are all friends. What a great day we've had. There's more work to be done. Now all of us come together. Isn't that great to see people of all parties coming together? This, the greatest, most important issue and decision that our country has taken in decades. We will continue to make the case over there in Parliament. But there's more work to be done. We need your help so that the people can take back control of the future of this country. So, in order to do that, there's a whole bunch of work that we were asking you now, please, to do. Vince.
Right, email your MPs because Parliament is heading to gridlock and only the people can resolve this mess.
Write to your MP and tell them that nobody voted for the botched up Brexit that the UK government is trying to deliver.
Matters. If you write to your MP, give one message at least. Why should we pay £50 billion in a divorce bill and get some little piece of paper in return? Do you think that's acceptable? No.
And write to your MPs to say enough is enough. Write to them to say that this is our country. This is our future. And what do we demand? We demand a people's vote. Thank you.
Well done. Well done. Isn't that a great sight? All our political parties speaking as one. If only it could happen more often. And I do have some breaking news, which is that the back of this march has only just reached Hyde Park Corner, which for those of you who don't come from London is a really long way away. And it means that 670,000 people was a very, very low estimate. There are many, many, many more of us here today. Thank you all for coming. It's not the end though. For our next voice, despite the fact that we're jubilant with that news, I want to ask you to be very, very, very quiet, to watch and to listen as the wonderful Scottish actor Brian Cox narrates a short film on how marches like this one have helped to change the world for the better. Watch, quiet and listen. Thank you.
So many of the things we value, so many of the great steps forward we have taken, seemed impossible until they happened. The NHS was a pipe dream. The establishment voted against it 21 times. The fight went on until a final vote made it real. Peace in Northern Ireland was a moonshot. It could never be. Until some brave leaders took a chance on peace and people north and south voted for progress. Votes for women, civil partnerships, devolution for Scotland and Wales, the movements against fascism and apartheid, often opposed by the powerful, but made real by the people. We came and stood in the rain together, marched together, sang together, fought together, and now we fight again. For our families, for our communities, for our children, because we want our future back. It is time for a people's vote on the Brexit deal, because everything is impossible until we make it happen.
Thank you to Brian Cox. So, there we are. When this campaign started, everyone said it was impossible. Now everyone is talking about the people's vote. Because nobody voted to be poorer, to see doctors and nurses leaving the health service, to see our politicians being laughed at around the world. But here's the thing, we don't have to do it. No deal or a bad deal, neither are acceptable to a country as great as ours.
Politicians have made a mess of it. It has to go back to the people. We, the people, have to fight for that. So I'll say it again. Keep filling in those postcards. And then when you get home, write to your MP. Email your MP. Visit your MP. And make sure they know that you will not be silenced. You will not be sidelined. There will be a people's vote on the most important set of decisions of our lifetimes.
You've been amazing. You've come here in your hundreds of thousands and marched for what you feel is right. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for fighting. Safe journey home, and see you on polling day.
By the way, one tiny bit of news to end. We have officially broken 700,000 people here today. 700,000 people who don't want the country ruined. That's it. We demand a people's vote. We demand a people's vote. We demand a people's vote. We demand a people's vote.
Well done. Thank you. Bye.
My name is Derry Finn and I have travelled from Northern Ireland today. I, like so many, am a child of the peace process and I'm here to demand a final say on the deal of Brexit. Today we march, but tomorrow we write to MPs, we lobby them and we tell them that we want our voices heard.
Hi, I'm Sally and I'm travelling down with a load of students from Bristol SU.
I'm Jamie from Fife and I'm on a coach with some students.
My name's Laurent, I'm from For Future's Sake, here nice and early for the People's Vote March.
We're travelling to the People's Vote March for the future, for our future's sake.
I've come down today to London. I'm actually from Orkney. We've travelled over 700 miles. It's a 1,000-mile round trip. I have brought some students with me and we've come here to march today to demand the people's vote.
Running out of ways to make you see. I want you to stay here beside me. I won't be okay and I won't pretend I am. So just tell me today and take my hand. Please take my hand. Please take my hand. Please take my hand.